Hey guys, today we're going to work on the Amazing Spider-Man 2 lenses, just the fog-free type lenses, not the ones with plastic. These are the ones with plastic, but we'll be making fog-free ones. But this is kind of just a get work done type stream, so I'm not too worried about doing a bunch of teaching. So a lot of this is just, kind of catching up with you guys because it's been like 3 weeks. Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks since my last stream. So I've been out of town and traveling and stuff, kind of visiting family and stuff. And I didn't really, tell anyone that because that's not something you typically want to go telling people on the internet that you're about to be out of town. So I'm back now and I just wanted to catch up because it's pretty exciting. In the last few weeks, yeah, like the last week or two, I've started to get like a crazy number of views on my channel. I get like 30,000 views a day. And one of the highest viewed videos is my vacuum form video for whatever reason. People really like watching vacuum forming, so maybe I'll end up doing a little more of that. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to glue magnets inside of the shell. So I'm using these already finished lenses just to make sure that the magnets are facing the correct direction so the polarity and everything is correct. I'm using some magnets I have here. These ones are already scratched. I went through and pre-scratched a lot of stuff. A lot of the work I've been doing on shells is just getting, the kind of tedious stuff that can derail me a little bit. Ooh, there go those magnets. Getting the tedious stuff done in large quantities, so I already have magnets scraped up. Quickly looking at a question. Yeah, Peyton, these are puff paint webs right here, not urethane or anything like that. It'd be kind of difficult to do urethane that thin. Not impossible, but it'd be difficult. There we go. Okay, so I'm using these kind of larger, wider magnets on the inside. I bought these magnets, by the way. A lot of people ask. I bought them from an online store called Amazing Magnets, I think. And it's neat because you can get this free kit of magnets with your order. I mean, I've got a ton. You can see I've got huge stacks of magnets over here. But with this website, you get this free sample kit when you buy magnets, so you can see, just how many choices you've got when it comes to rare earth magnets. You can go really tiny, but it's neat having all of these different varieties of rare earth magnets. Sometimes they come in handy for different things, and they're free. So that's all. I mean, that's a lot of magnets for free. So that's a cool store. Check them out. I think Amazing Magnets. I think I found them on Amazon. Yeah, let me read some comments. I haven't seen comments in a little bit. Oh yeah, I definitely am going to be working on the moving lenses again. And I'm sorry that you guys you had your hopes up for like the premiere or whatever, but these are still just my top priority. I can only work on so much Spider-Man stuff. These are still my top priority, so unfortunately, kind of loses out, or Homecoming stuff loses out to that. But I don't have the kind of the same mentality about it you guys do. Like I'll eventually work on the Homecoming stuff, but it's just not like a pressing thing for me. Because I've been working on Spider-Man stuff for a long time. My glue might be a little clogged here. Yeah, I've been working on Spider-Man stuff for a long, long time, like 4 years, 4 or 5 years at this point. So, kind of itching a little bit to go and work on something else. Just put this on a paper towel. Yeah, and I do want to do a Homecoming shell that isn't isn't moving, like with just regular lenses, because that's going to be the best way to get it accurate. Because the moving lenses are really cool, but no matter what, when you do the moving lenses, you just have a little bit of thickness with all the components and everything. Because this is pretty similar. I mean, I use a very similar shell type for the moving lenses. It's just, it doesn't have any of this like bump here. This has a little bit of kind of a rim, like a bowl rim, just for the sake of the lenses sticking in. But for the moving lenses, it has to be perfectly flat and perfectly smooth. So there's a lot that goes into that, but it still is similar to this type of shell design here. And that's kind of one of the problems I have with teaching you guys how to do the moving lenses. I mean, if I don't teach you how to make a shell like this, you won't be able to make moving lenses unless someone sells like a kit of all the components you need. So I have to approach it in a way that works. But I do want to just make a kind of video about the inner workings of it, because it's cool how it looks on the inside. All right, glued all those magnets. Read some comments here. I need to keep a better look on this. But yeah, anyway, I mean, in the last like 2 or 3 weeks, I've been out of town, of course, but my channel really picked up a lot, and I got over the 10,000 subscriber kind of threshold, which is really cool, because that once you hit 10,000 subscribers, you're able to go to the YouTube space down in kind of southern LA, and I'm gonna finally be able to go down there, and I've wanted to do that for years, since I've been out here in LA for a few years now. I know other people that go there all the time, but I've wanted to just kind of get to the point where I've got 10,000 subscribers, so now I can actually go and check out space. I think I'm sure there's some kind of seniority and stuff, and I'm the bottom of the totem pole, but it's still really neat. So thank you for subscribing to me if you're a new subscriber, because it helps out a lot. Those subscriptions go a long way. And also exciting, I'm almost done, almost caught up on these shells that I'm working on here. I know I've been working on these for months. All of my streams pretty much so far have had these kind of hanging over them, but I'm almost done with them, and then I'll work on other stuff. All right, so I've got these magnets glued in. Now I like to go in and just add extra super glue. So everyone's seen Homecoming now, right? We're not in spoiler territory anymore, because for the last two streams, it was after the movie had come out, but I think it was still kind of spoilery to talk about it. But now I think it's okay at least to talk about the Iron Spider suit. So now that we can talk about the Iron Spider suit, that while really cool, it also kind of threw my plans off, because basically I was planning on making an Iron Spider suit kind of in this time frame up until Homecoming came out, and it was kind of revealed that was already in there. Because I've been wanting for a few years now to make a kind of realistic MCU, but like with the comic design element, the red with gold elements design, but make it really cool, like kind of Tony Stark designed suit. But I mean, of course, the end of Homecoming comes around, and it's like basically, it doesn't have the red and gold coloration that I wanted to go for, but it's basically the same kind of idea I was going for, of a kind of spandex suit, still with armor though, built into like the shoulders and the chest. So that's kind of a bummer a little bit. kind of knocked me back a little bit, just because it's, and I'm not super crazy about the design they made, and also the fact that the design is there, but there's so little reference for it. I don't like to make costumes or suits or anything when there's barely any reference material, because then you finish the suit, and as soon as you're done finishing the suit, a whole bunch of reference photos are released, and you're already out of date. So that's frustrating. It's a few years before we have enough reference to actually make an accurate suit for that. But I kind of want to make an Iron Man suit or something anyway. I've recently gotten into 3D printing, and that's really, really fun stuff. So I'm interested in, kind of going full into that for a project. Aiden just said you could add your own stuff like lights in the eyes. Aiden, that's actually what I was going to do for my idea of the homecoming or for the Iron Spider suit. I was actually going to do the moving homecoming lenses, but I was going to make them gold, each layer gold, and then I was going to make the white parts actually glow a little bit, so it had, gold detailed inlay, and then kind of structure. My idea was to kind of structure the face shell a little bit like Iron Man. It's hard because Iron Man never has a nose, but I do a little bit of a nose like this, and then maybe a little bit of a chin, and I had some other neat ideas for it too. So maybe I'll still, kind of pursue that project because I think it's going to be, or it would have been cool. But now Iron Spider is an actual thing, so it's hard to kind of justify working on it now. And I've got other projects that I still want to work on. Some people have been asking about an actual MCU suit or doing the homecoming suit, and I have to admit I'm just not. The biggest thing that makes me want to work on the MCU suit is doing it for the stream. I want to do like certain streams where I work through the suit, but there's so much effort that goes into making a full suit that it's hard to think about how to plan all of that out. And also so many other people are just hitting the MCU suit out of the park. They do such a really good job with it, with screen printing and everything like that. And so it kind of is a situation where you can make your own, or just like I could get one of those other people's suits that looks really good, collaborate with them. But either way, like I've said, I'm a little burnt out on Spider-Man stuff, so who knows what my next project will be. And it kind of is what stalls the streams and work on this stuff a little bit. I wish, I wanna do more stuff. People ask about sales all the time. And I wish I could be a little more open and outward with it, but I'm kind of I'm kind of moving in different directions here. If I'm moving into a legitimate YouTube channel, I might risk getting in trouble for selling stuff. So I might, maybe it'll be like, hey, Spider Guy mask. Yeah, I don't spell Spider-Man masks. I sell Spider Guy face shells. But maybe soon. I'm just still so far behind on these always. So I'm kind of hesitant to even think about accepting new orders, but we'll see. We'll see in the future. Thanks for tuning in, guys. 87 viewers. That's what the last few days, like the last 2 weeks, it's been pretty crazy. I get like 30 to 60,000 views a day, which is pretty nuts. I've been on YouTube for like 10 years now and have never had that density of viewers, which is pretty cool. It kind of is an interesting insight into what goes into working for YouTube. Okay, so I'm still working on the mesh lenses, so the next step is to deal with my mesh here. This is mesh that I actually cast myself. I make this with liquid plastic, just 65D, smooth cast 65D from Reynolds, and I cast it into my own mold. You can go back to some of my old streams. I've got actual footage of me making these plastic mesh lenses, so you can kind of go and find that. But I have a big stack of them cast here. Like I said earlier, I've kind of been doing a lot of the groundwork, making the stuff, and now it's just a matter of assembling it. So I'm pretty excited at almost being done here. One key thing, right now I'm finding my outline. These are template lenses that I've got. This won't have plastic on it like these lenses here do. This is just going to be mesh alone. But I use this to get the shape and everything. But one thing is you just really have to be careful, especially with the way I cast them myself, that there aren't any bubbles or any debris in the actual mesh. And so I have to, visually sit here and inspect it. I know, these blue spots, I went through the whole stack and inspected it, and I hit it with marker so that I know for sure where little spots are, but you still have to be careful because it's really discouraging when you find them at the very end once you've finished the lens. So I'm lining the mesh has kind of a shape to it. You can see lines in the holes. I'm lining that up with these two notches here. And I found those notches just through trial and error, just by I drew them on and then found the mesh, and then that makes it so that the pattern is level and even, and then it'll be even across both sets of lenses. And then if it's off at all, you just have to move your notch in whichever direction and just kind of trial and error until you find it. And this is a pretty good shape that I've got here. So I line it up and just take a Sharpie. Oh wait, I might have slipped. And I'm really close to the edge here because I think I might be able to get both lenses on this one piece of plastic, which is good because then they're both, the same plastic, so they'll age at the same rate and look the same. All right, there's one. B&W Films has a new gadget that lets you breathe underwater. B&W, go get your Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, if you can make people breathe underwater like James Bond, that's pretty neat. Or how about like Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan in Phantom Menace when they go underwater? That'd be pretty cool. Oh, let's see. That's cool. Peyton's working on a Scarlet Spider costume. Scarlet Spider's pretty cool. I feel like they kind of incorporated some Scarlet Spider into the homemade suit for Homecoming, kind of at least with the hoodie, the sleeveless hoodie. It's funny. It's nice. My comments section here is just a little promotion spot. You can promote your channel. It's neat. Go check out other people's work too. That's what I love about YouTube. It's just awesome. If you make cool stuff, people will come and check it out. I'm definitely not the most, this is a good example. I'm not the most presentation oriented. I'm not the most, good at making this a nice polished video, but at least, the information's there and I sit here and work and talk, so. Yeah, I definitely think I need to work on the MCU shell, just like the normal version next. Just a MCU shell with kind of standard lenses. I think that'd be pretty cool. Make it a little more accurate. I've also got an idea for my moving lenses to make it a little more accurate and a little more simplified in the whole process. What I'm doing right now is I'm just putting this outline on the back because I have to do some sanding and some trimming and stuff to clean this up. I wish I had some type of, like I picture a stream someday where I actually have sort of some support positions where I could, take pictures from you guys. I remember I had that idea several months ago and I just never pursued it, but having a stream where I just look at your guys' stuff. If you guys have stuff that you want me to look at, and then maybe we'll do a stream soon since I forgot about that. If you want, we can look at stuff. If you send me a message to my website, if you go to my website, madebymclean.com, you can find a little comment section down at the bottom, or just madebymclean@gmail.com. You can send a message there. But if you send pictures of your stuff, and what should maybe like live in the subject, put something like live stream photo. Maybe in the next few days we'll finally do that idea where I look at your stuff and we can talk about it. We can talk about like the kind of stuff, the way you did it, other stuff you could do, because that'll probably be a little more helpful to a lot of people out there. Because with my stream, I kind of have no hesitation to just kind of show you where I'm at. I don't really put a lot of time into explaining how you can get there easily. Like the soda bottle lenses are the closest I have to a sort of beginner tutorial. And so that would probably be a good stream to do. So yeah, if you've got pictures of work that you're working on that you might want to talk about, send it to madebymclean@gmail.com, or you can find the comment section on my website, or the contact form section. Yeah, that'd be fun. And once again, this mesh I cast myself. I actually cast this with liquid plastic in a silicone mold I made. So that's kind of its own video that I'll need to do someday, is how I make this mesh. But that's also kind of a trade secret of mine, because it's probably the most intricate mold I've ever made, because this is over here is how it looks coming straight out of the mold, and it already looks, pretty much just like a mesh, and then it only takes a little bit of work to get it looking, even more refined. And then this is a thermoformable plastic, which is key. You couldn't do these mesh lenses with a vinyl unless it was a really thick, sturdy vinyl. You couldn't do it with like a sticker material because it doesn't hold its shape. But this stuff is actually plastic that can be heated and formed, which is key for making it hold the lens shape without the plastic being there. So I just clean it up here. And toothbrushes are designed to get this kind of stuff out. It's literally their whole purpose. It's good because it pushes, you can, push it out from the front, so anything stuck in there gets pushed out. I'd be curious what other people do for their fog-free lenses, because I've never been very outward with my method of making lenses, so I wonder where they get. A Discord server would actually be pretty funny. I was just reading comments. See you, random gamer. Thanks for tuning in. Matthew, I'd need to know what you're casting to kind of help you with the issue you're having. But if you're getting bubbles at the edges, try just having the liquid latex go over the edge, just spill over the edge, and then you trim it later, or you scrape away what's left with like a toothpick or a popsicle stick or a paper towel. I'd have to kind of know what you're working on, though. I've done a lot of liquid latex casting. That's a really good kind of intro. Probably a good intro project would be doing like a Batman cowl, because that was a project I've done a couple times where you can just do it with plaster and liquid latex and clay. And that's a good way to learn the kind of fundamentals of casting and mold making. Silicone is really awesome. Silicone is a magical material, but its biggest problem is how expensive it is, probably for beginners especially, because when you mess up, you don't get a second chance easily. But silicone is so much better than anything else, than plaster or anything. I would do a Spider-Man PS4 suit, but I've seen people out there kind of use the same techniques I would use with the just doing a dye sub suit and then doing the silicone emblems. Does anyone know when that Spider-Man game comes out? Because if I move my stream in that direction, I could kind of do it in a way that just go through whatever suits. I could end up designing a bunch of suits just on the stream. I've still got a lot of work to do just on the whole kind of design and presentation of my stream. It's still a little sloppy and lacks focus. But now that I've hit this 10,000 subscriber mark and I'm able to go down to the YouTube space, I've actually signed up for some like classes on how to do a do-it-yourself stream down on YouTube. So I'll actually get some education on that because a lot of it's just been kind of figuring it out. I still want to explore some methods for streaming. You can stream on basically every stream site at once. There are some services that let you stream onto the service, and then the service streams to YouTube and Twitch and all the other ones. Those are the only ones I really know, but lets you stream to all those. Okay, so I've got my mesh here already. Next is to cast it, or heat it up and form it. So I'm going to move that a little bit back so it doesn't get roasted. All right. So here's how I do this. These are, typically the mesh would have plastic on both sides, and that gives it this really nice, shiny, cool, reflective look. And I think that is ultimately the coolest look, but it just really makes the lenses hard to see through, and it makes them fog up a lot easier. Yeah, Brandon, I'll totally just sew all your stuff for free. Why not? Just kidding. I'm joking. I'm trying to teach you, Brandon. If that's how you feel, then you definitely just need to learn to sew. Oh, good. I didn't plug this in. So that's, I want to just teach you guys how to do it so that you're able to sew your own stuff. Because it's amazing what you can work on if you can just bring out your sewing machine and sew your own suit together. So that's why I strongly recommend everyone learn this skill. It's just like most other tools. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I kind of just pinch this here with my fingers. Matthew Dela Cruz has a good question. What's the difference between liquid latex and urethane rubber? There's a lot of difference. Urethane rubber casts cures itself through a chemical reaction. So it's a lot like silicone or plastic, so it needs an A and a B to mix together, and it'll cool down. So it's kind of difficult to make urethane rubber slush castings. So what a slush casting is when you take a mold and you get all of your mold material, like liquid latex, slushed all around the interior, and then it dries. It air dries. It doesn't need a chemical reaction. You slush cast that around the inside of your mold, and it air dries, and it kind of just sits wherever it attaches to the mold as it's slush casting around. Whereas a urethane would just pool. So urethane, you actually need a core inside of the mold. Like if you're doing a Batman cowl, you need an inside portion of the mold that tells you what the thickness is. Like all professionally molded things, if you look at something that's, cast or molded professionally. Like, I don't know, the stapler might be a good demonstration of it. But everything that's molded has an outside of the mold and it has an inside of the mold. Actually, this is two parts. So this is actually still the outside, and then the inside is in there, and all the components lock in. That's because it's got two components to its mold. It's got an outside and an inside. And that's what you need for urethane rubber if you're casting like a Batman mask or an armor piece. And it took me a long time to learn that. And so it can be difficult. Whereas if you're doing it with latex, you'd only need the outside, and then the latex itself gives it the thickness, the even thickness, just by slushing around and going on inside of that mold. So it's a little easier to do the latex, but it's just not. The problem with latex is that it shrinks a lot. It shrinks like 5%. So when you make a mask out of latex, you've actually got to figure that 5% of shrinkage into it, and that can be kind of a pain. Like, I made a mask on a bust of my own head, and it didn't fit after I made the latex mask because it shrank so much. And that's another advantage urethane has. Laurent, do you mean the fingertips purpose as in like what is the actual movie purpose of the fingertips? Like what those little details on the ASM-1 fingertips is? Because I think that it's something to do with the web shooter. I think that that design on his fingertips, it's supposed to like make contact with the pads he has on his fingers, or the pads he has on his palm, and then that's what like shoots the web in different formats. All right. Boom. Doesn't take much heat, which is good, but it's also bad because the problem with this mesh, I've never run into this problem, but I could see someone running into this problem. It's so thin and easy to form. Like, I just formed it so easily right there. If you were to like leave this in your car on a hot day or anything like that, just really hot day, it might lose its form, and then basically it would just be a flat, straight piece of mesh, which would kind of be unfortunate. Like I said, I haven't seen that happen yet, but I don't doubt the possibility of it. Let's go a little further. Aiden asked if I prefer the organic or the mechanical webbing. That's a good question. I mean, the organic doesn't really make sense. Like, I liked it in the Raimi movies because it's just something you don't have to think about really. Because the biggest problem with the mechanical webbing is that it just kind of it kind of makes Peter Parker Tony Stark a little bit, and it's like he's such a super genius as well as getting bitten by the spider. Whereas in the Raimi movies, and then also kind of in Homecoming, because he had his own web shooter in Homecoming that he built, but he had a more advanced one from Tony Stark. I don't know. I liked it in the Raimi movies, but I also liked it back in the cartoons when he'd always be out of web fluid at the most inopportune times. Luff asked about spectacular Spider-Man lenses and mask. Is that's the big lenses, right? That's like the ones where the lenses go full on, like halfway on his face. I wanted to do a type of big, super large lens on the side of the face, but I just never, I've always been kind of been buried underneath this shell work. It's like whenever I wanted to work on a different type of shell, I always have these shells and lenses to work on top of it. So it's kind of hard for me to justify working on a new design when I have a mountain of this stuff to work through. So, any orders I take in the future are definitely going to be small little batches that I can work through, and I'm not sure what that will be like, but we'll see. Luke just asked, "Is the heat gun hurting your fingers?" I forgot to tell you, but basically the reason why I do that with just my exposed fingers is because these are both thermoformable plastics. This plastic lens, I've used this for like all of my meshes, but it can actually be formed by the heat gun too. It could be melted. But the mesh has a much lower threshold. And so the reason why I hold it very specifically like this, I use my fingers as sort of like a heat detection system, so that when I turn on the heat gun and I'm shooting it at it, I can just tell right away, my fingertips can feel the heat, and so I know how much heat needs to be put on it, and it is just enough to melt the mesh, but not the plastic, the clear plastic, and then I know to put the bottom part on and form it. So that's why I leave my fingertips exposed. But yes, this thing can go up to like 1,500 degrees, so it could definitely melt my fingertips off if I were careless about it. Yeah, I need to, and also, the last thing I was working on was that Amazing Spider-Man 1 pattern. I still need to finish that as well, so you'll get a couple streams of that soon. I just kind of got stopped up figuring out what the next component should be that I basically cover with it. As far as the shell, the next stage is gluing on the actual lenses magnets. So get these into position. Take the mesh, make sure it fits. Looks good already. I really like the way these mesh lenses look on camera. They really refract a lot of light, and so they just kind of glow white. All right. It's not as important as with the plastic lenses, but you really have to be careful not to have any debris or anything in any of the holes, because you only find that stuff once you've glued the plastic on and everything, and then you can't get at it anymore. You realize that there's a little piece of debris inside. Pretty annoying. All right, so now I just have to put on a big spot of glue on each of these 3 magnets. And then I'm also going to use some extra magnets to pin it down. Aiden, just when you're getting a toothbrush, just use an old toothbrush. This is just a toothbrush I didn't use anymore. Because toothbrushes are only good for a couple of months technically, and then I guess they lose their strength and brushability. Toothbrushes are always a good thing to hold on to. Oh, my glue might be jammed here again. Old bottles of glue do this a lot. They just start jamming and stopping a lot. Oops. All right, you have to be careful with glues and super glues and stuff. You don't want to, all right, whatever. You don't want to have super glue all over your fingers, and I've got a little bit of dried stuff on my fingertips. And you don't want to touch like your shell or your lenses or anything and get that on there. It can be really detrimental. Cool. Getting the good good quality comments here. Once you reach a threshold with YouTube, I don't know what the minimum is or whatever, but start to get girls in your area advertising in the comments. I had one stream where that happened. That was funny. Because YouTube live streams are kind of the wild, wild west right now, I think. If you go look at the other live streams, basically like any TV show you can think of, someone is just live streaming that somehow. YouTube hasn't removed it. They're probably making ad revenue off of it. It's pretty weird. Oop. Man, my glue just is not cooperating. Yeah, so these comments are just rated MA, not for young audiences, I guess. There's not much you can do about it. Makes me realize why YouTube doesn't record doesn't record comments into the live streams. Your friend Joseph, the first mask I made, kind of the most like official first mask I made was probably Batman. I actually sculpted it on a plaster bust of my head. But I've been making a lot of stuff for a long time. I did a Boba Fett costume. That was like my first official costume where I actually went out and got stuff. But I didn't make the mask for that one. I used one of those like Dawn Post plastic Boba Fett helmets. But I've always had a very big head. Like actually, literally, I have a large head. Like I have to wear extra large helmets and stuff. And that, I think, is a big part of why I started making my own masks and stuff. Because back when I was a little kid, Batman masks didn't even really fit my head. And I remember I wanted one so bad, so I actually had to, make a plaster cast of my head and then sculpt it and everything. So that was unfortunate, but also at the same time, I learned something, so it was good. All right, pin those on, let them dry for a little bit. Reading comments, catching up here, or at least trying to. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. 250 viewers, it's pretty good. That's like how many viewers I had for my vacuum forming stream, which is really popular right now for whatever reason. I mean, really, it's so strange kind of how things like that can work. I was thinking my mechanical lens video would get really popular and take off, but no, it's the video where I was just vacuum forming face shells and struggling to get the face shells off of the bust. I kind of wonder if maybe that's not part of it. If I am, people see that and think it's funny. But either way, it's cool. It's more recognition for my channel, which is, I'm pretty close to wanting to do the MCU shell now because it's getting out there a lot more. All right, I have those lenses, magnets glued. Yeah, I'll definitely be going into the mechanical lenses and stuff. It's just just a matter of getting caught up on stuff. And I mean, I've already, I talked about it earlier in this stream. I recently got up to 10,000 subscribers. I'm up to like 12,000 now. But I recently got all those subscribers, so it's really cool. I'll be able to go to the YouTube space and everything, so I think from here on out, my stream will get a lot better and everything. Matthew just asked if I'm still active on the RPF. No, I've been really bad about being on the RPF and being on my Patreon page and being on Twitter, and there is a list of social media type stuff that I've just been so bad about. I kind of just think about it once and then forget about it and don't think about it again. But I definitely realize that I need to get more into all of those. I need to get more into Twitter, into posting more on my Patreon page. I'd like to be more active on the RPF, talk to people there. But it's kind of a lot of times it's work like this that kind of just I get so far behind on my orders, and then I feel bad about working on anything new. But I always have to be working on something new because that's what I find enjoyable about all of this. So it's just a knot I get caught in way too often. Hi, Roblox. You said hi 6 times, so I guess I'll say hi back. Woo. Yeah, unfortunately, at a certain point, YouTube live streams just turn into spam on the comments. It's hard to have the little nice conversations, but I'll try to still catch comments. Sometimes when you have a question, your best chance is to just keep asking over and over. All right, so now I need to bend the frames. I need a lens on there for that. So I'm just going to stick on the plastic template. Jogon asked what my favorite Spider-Man suit is. For movies, I'd say the Amazing Spider-Man 2, the one I'm making lenses for right now, just because it's so awesome and accurate to the comic books. And then as far as comic book suits, I really like what was the name of it? The Ben Reilly Spider-Man. I really liked his design. I think was it Sensational Spider-Man. Yeah, I like that design with the blue and then the spider that goes on the front and the back. It's very, very descriptive of a Spider-Man suit, I know. But I think now Spider-Girl has the same design that has blue all the way down under the chest and a big black spider that is on the front and the back. That's always been my favorite design. I just like the way that looks. All right. So when I'm heating something up that I can't hold, because you have to heat these lenses up quite a bit, or these frames up, I put it on the bottom of a cake pan because the heat doesn't reach the table or anywhere else. I wear these kind of just standard little cotton gloves, and then I have some cold water here that I immediately dunk it into so that it holds its shape exactly the way I want it to. Otherwise, if you just let it kind of cool at room temperature, it'll kind of flatten back out to this flat shape. Whereas if you go straight from hot to cold, it actually tempers the plastic into that position that you cast it into. Dupe, I think my favorite Spider-Man game is probably the Ultimate Spider-Man game. back on, what was it, PlayStation 2? I think it was on Wii as well. I think I played it on the Wii. Um, or GameCube. Maybe it was GameCube. But yeah, I really liked that one. It had the really fun kind of just open sandbox New York and going around and, doing different things. Hmm. Trying to catch up on a comment chain here. I don't know who my favorite Spider-Man is. It's kind of depends on what your idea of Spider-Man is. I think honestly, I haven't been the biggest fan of the last two, but that's just because it's kind of not the same Spider-Man. I mean I grew up with the cartoons and the comics that kind of had him as like an older guy, really. I mean, like a college student, and then they all really capitalized on more of the younger nerdy version. So, I think maybe my idea of the ideal Spider-Man is just from a different time of the '90s. So I don't know. I really liked the Tobey Maguire one. I think he did a good job just because he fit the role of the movie. Because I think the biggest thing with the Spider-Man actor is like the actor isn't important. I think that the viewer is supposed to be Spider-Man, is supposed to embody Spider-Man and kind of go on the adventure. And whoever is playing Spider-Man is just supposed to kind of like facilitate your role. Um, and I think that's a big part of why Spider-Man is so popular. I mean, he is his demographic. He is who reads his stories, and I think that is key for kind of the viewer plugging into Spider-Man. All right, is that hot enough yet? No, a little more. Yeah, my favorite Spider-Man cartoon is definitely the '90s cartoon. That one was just so crazy, and it started to do all the crazy like multiple timelines. That one really got pretty weird with Madam Web. All right, so you can see that this, what once was a stiff frame, now is basically like rubber, a rubbery material, and it wants to go back to flat. It's really fighting me to go back to flat, but you just have to keep working along, never press too hard in one particular area. But I keep working it around to give it that really curved dome shape. And it's also important that this corner up here kind of poke inward a little bit as well. You don't want that sticking up and out. So once you're pretty confident that the whole shape of it is pretty good and flat here, and it's kind of starting to cool on its own, that's when you want to just immediately dunk it. And it's just going to hold that, get locked immediately, because that cooling action just immediately sets the surface area where it's at. Judah, that's a good question. Do you ever lose creativity, and what helps keep you going? Um, uh, I guess I wouldn't say lose creativity. I'd just say lose energy, because your energy, you have a finite amount of energy every day and just in general, and it a lot of times a project that seems really fun on the surface of it, like building an Iron Man suit, can seem really really fun on the surface, but then once you get into the fact that you're making the elbow and the inside of the back of the knee, like you're really having to make so much stuff, it can just really like start to drain your energy because you have that excitement initially that gets you into it. So I don't know. It's difficult. I like to listen to audiobooks. If anything kind of gets tedious or takes a lot of energy, I like to listen to audiobooks because then if it's tedious, you're probably not having to put a lot of thought into it. And then you can listen to audiobooks, and I've listened to dozens of audiobooks, all of the Game of Thrones books, the King Killer Chronicle books so far. I've listened to all of the Expanse books. I've listened to a couple of other sci-fi series books. But it's really neat. Books are awesome. I don't think anyone really reads enough because we've got so many other easier formats of entertainment, but books are unique in that you're put into the perspective of whoever you're reading, the character of the book. Whereas movies and TV shows, you only kind of look at them thinking, unless there's narration. You can do narration, but books are unique in growing perspective. So I highly recommend books, even if they're books on tape. Oh, whoops! I need to put the plastic over first. Dylan asked about the Spider-Man suit at the end of Homecoming. We talked about that a little bit at the beginning of the stream. It's funny because I was going to be working on an Iron Spider suit around this time. That was kind of my plan anyway. But then, that came out with the movie, and so it's kind of derailed that plan a little bit. But I still do want to work on a suit like that. I'd probably want to work on that suit before working on the MCU suit. But unfortunately, there's just not enough reference material right now. There's basically no shots of the back. I think there's a little bit of a shot from Comic-Con, but there's basically no reference on like the back and the legs, and I just hate working on suits like that because you have to work so hard to guess at the details, and then by the time you're done with your guess suit, more reference materials become available, and you're already inaccurate. So that's why I typically don't like rush to the finish line and try to be the first anymore, just because then you miss details that are more obvious after the movie comes out. Yeah, I have some ideas with the Homecoming shutters. Like one thing, my shutters are kind of not glossy; they're kind of matte. But I think after watching the movie that the shutters are glossy and reflective, kind of like these lenses here. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but from my experience sitting and watching the movie, I was kind of like, well, my lenses are already kind of inaccurate, just because mine are made of that kind of flat material, flat black material. And then the Homecoming lenses are a lot flatter, and the shape is different when he closes his eyes. So I think I'm going to be able to simplify my design a lot and get a more accurate closing shape, and then also have it all be thinner as well. So we'll see. That's kind of the next step with my Homecoming moving lenses. But that's after this. So. But who knows? Maybe I'll decide to do that on the actual stream. Oh, that sucks, Chris. Chris's YouTube didn't notify him that the stream was going. It's too bad. Matthew asked, which actor would fill the role of Spider-Man in your opinion? I really don't know. I mean, I guess I take it back. Tom Holland did a good job. I don't know who else I would cast in that role. And I think Andrew Garfield did a good enough job with what they gave him. I just didn't really like the interpretation of Peter Parker in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I thought he was a little too cool and kind of suave. And that kind of just didn't make sense. And kind of a jerk. He's kind of a jerk in the first one, too. It's weird. Yeah, Thomas kind of answered his own question a little bit there. It depends on which suit you're working on, but It takes a couple months to finish a Spider-Man suit if you're trying to really get high detail. And then if you're printing it with a dye sublimation company, that can take a couple weeks of back and forth printing. So yeah, there's quite a bit that goes into it. That's why I kind of haven't, jumped right into the MCU suit. Some people just redesign the Raimi pattern. They basically just take the Raimi pattern and plop a new design on top of it. But I've never really done that. I always have to, in some degree, I have to make the pattern my own a little bit. All right. Ooh. Okay, so that's both of these. That Venom film is probably going to be really cool, just because they've gotten, Tom Hardy, and I think Tom Hardy and Venom will be a cool mix. But who knows? It's Sony, so who knows? I probably shouldn't be so quick to badmouth anyone, but we'll see. I don't have a ton of faith in anything Sony does. Sony, the film studio, I should say. Sony, the video game company, is fine. This is Eric's, but there's only a couple shell orders left. There's only like 6 orders left, so I'm pretty excited. These will be done in a timely fashion, and I've gotten all of the, well, not all of them, but I've gotten a lot of the pieces prepped and ready to go. So almost ready to go and work on something new. Maybe start on the MCU suit, because like I said earlier in this stream, I'm not like super excited to jump into it, but the biggest thing I want to do is I want to build it on the stream. I want to teach you guys how to do something like the MCU suit. Okay. So I always use my template lenses. I use these, templates a lot for lining up my frames. I basically, I'll end up lining this one up to the template frame, and then I can line the other one up to this one. So it gives me, a bit of a jumping off point. So this can always be a little tricky. This first initial gluing. Thomas, I said earlier that my favorite Spider-Man game is Ultimate Spider-Man. I like that one a lot. If you can find a version of that, I recommend it. Very fun. Probably cheap at like a GameStop or old video game shop. No, this isn't. This blue fabric isn't actually for the mask. It looked pretty cool, but this is just thick spandex that I use to keep glue from getting onto the shell from the lenses. To keep the lenses from gluing themselves onto the shell. So this one, just try to line it up perfectly. I don't want to put too much glue on here, because like I said, I don't want it gluing itself to the mask or even to the fabric that much. And I'll strengthen it later. Okay. Sometimes there will also be a tendency for this forehead part to bump up. I don't know if that's just my shell or if that's always going to happen, but I don't know. Something to be aware of. So I pushed it from the inside, and now I just need those few little glue attachments to kind of take hold. Yep. Grabbed on. Sometimes the glue doesn't grab on right away, and you've got to do that process a couple of times. I just got a little bit of glue on my thumb, a little bit of spillover glue. So you just have to be careful, because if I were to get that glue on my thumb and then touch the front, I've ruined way too many lenses that way. But now this is just ready to have a little bit more glue put onto it. And then once again, I have a paper towel to just wipe away the excess as I'm dotting glue on the inside here. I have to kind of push it down to actually make contact there with my fingernail. I need to cut my fingernails. They're a little long. I apologize for that. I didn't even realize before I started filming. So I'm wiping away the excess, but enough actually got into that little joint that it actually connects it, glues it down. So now I just go around doing that to the rest. Man, so many Spider-Man questions to answer. Spider-Man versus Venom. Well, I think Spider-Man won that because he's smart and he just used the vibrations or whatever. And when did I get into Spider-Man? I got into Spider-Man when I was like five or six, because that was around the time that the animated cartoon came out. And then I also have my cousin Bobby to thank a lot for it. I'd go over and hang out at my cousin's house a lot, and he had a bunch of X-Men and Spider-Man toys. I can remember very vividly going over and hanging out and wanting to see his collection of like X-Men and Spider-Man. He had all the villains and all that stuff. It was pretty cool. But I can remember getting into it there. I can even remember he had his mom make him a Spider-Man costume at one point. It looked good. It wasn't like a film quality that we typically do. It was just red and blue fabric, but still, I can remember it all. I also remember just wanting a Spider-Man mask really, really badly. So I can relate to a lot of you kids when you comment. Not that you're all kids, but some of you I can tell are definitely kids. And so I can relate to being that age and really, really wanting a Spider-Man mask. But when I was that age, that was before even the Sam Raimi movie had come out. So there really wasn't like an actual version of the Spider-Man mask. You'd always see just the Spider-Man mask that was on a person's head and had white fabric eyes, so it kind of looked weird. And like the head on its own just doesn't have the correct shape to look cool in a Spider-Man suit, which is why they've always had face shells under the mask. They're aware that the head kind of looks goofy under a spandex mask. I'm sure there are a lot of man-childs out there right now. Yeah, well, the definition of kid is really, really loose. I mean, age is pretty weird. I mean, I still feel young. I mean, I'm like almost 30. But I still feel pretty young. I mean, that probably it was funny in Homecoming when I don't remember what character said it, but one of them was like, "He's almost 30. Ew." Like, aw, that was mean, but it's still pretty funny. I'd say Ace the artist just said young adult is 18 to 21. I'd say young adult is more like 18 to 26 because I wouldn't classify. Well, some people are really responsible from an early age. They are definitely adults, but there are people that are responsible from being teenagers. So there's definitely a wide spectrum of people and being an adult at what age. Some people have kids at really early ages. It's all just a state of mind, though. Yeah, Corin, I saw your message, so I'll go ahead and get that worked out. Oh yeah, I've talked in the stream before about the 3D printed ASM2 shell, and I even have a stream back in April, I think, where I designed the ASM2 shell a little bit in Blender. But I'm going to go back to that pretty shortly here because I want to make an even more up to date ASM2 shell and ASM1, and I'm just going to have each of them 3D printable because then I don't have to worry about my molds breaking and losing those shells if I have a 3D printable version. That's not to say that the shells themselves will be 3D printed. I think I'm going to do the same thing I did for MCU, where I printed the shell and then used that as a buck, and then just vacuum formed the shell after that. Um, so I think I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do that relatively soon. So that'll be exciting because it's definitely I can tell people are you know a little over some aspects of my face shell. I like it. I'm not deprecating it on it in any way because it works really well with my face shell design basically. It's designed to go with the shape of this seam right here to fit it perfectly and give it that boom boom three-dimensional kind of geometric shape. But the problem with it is that when you see it on other people's shells, like this shell has it here, you can see here that it's just visible and it looks weird. It's kind of just a weirder detail that bumps out, especially if there's no seam there. It just looks like, what is that? Why is that person's face like that? So I think with the next one, I'll do a lot more like my MCU shell, which doesn't have that design. It just goes, flat down and kind of has a more normal chin, which will, it'll lose this kind of nice detail on my prints, but I think it'll be overall better for just everyone's shells. So that's another thing I want to work on. I've even thought of streaming that pretty recently because I almost worked on that the other day. It was the middle of the night though, so I didn't know if I want to actually stream in the middle of the night or not. Because then I know if I stream in the middle of the night, other people on the other side of the world will get to watch it live, but then I know a lot of you guys will be asleep and be bummed in the morning. Josh, I'll have to wait on the Spider-Man PS4. I like the design of it, of the suit. Not so much the lenses. I'm not wild about how thick and bulky the lenses are on top of the mask. But I'll wait and see how the game actually is, because the last few Spider-Man games have been a little bit boring. I'm only a fan of Spider-Man games when you're doing a lot of sandbox open world stuff. And so, once I see that sandbox open world stuff, I'll be receptive to it. But otherwise, I'm not a fan of when it's like Spider-Man running through a facility and, oh, look, it's a room of 3 or 4 bad guys and you have to smash buttons until they're all dead. And then, oh, look, another room of 3 or 4 bad guys and you have to smash buttons until they're all dead. Gets a little boring. Maximus asked about a homecoming suit with accurate seams. Maybe. The biggest thing that I'm just not crazy about some of the seams on the homecoming suit and like on the mask. I just don't. I'm not a huge. I understand why they placed them where they did, but I really am just not a huge fan of the homecoming suit in general. Sorry if some of you out there like it, because it's cool. What I really like about it is I've always wondered after every Iron Man movie or after the Avengers movie, I guess. Like, why doesn't Iron Man make a suit for Captain America and Black Widow and Hawkeye and even Hulk? I mean, why aren't they all flying around like Iron Man can? And so that's kind of one thing I really liked about this new Spider-Man movie. It was like that was kind of the secondary nature of the plot, was that it was about what it's like when Tony Stark suits up another superhero. But I don't know. The overall design of it, just I'm not too crazy about it. But I do want to work on it for those of you who are. All right. So I've got this one glued. And yeah, for those of you who don't know really what fog-free means or what I'm doing here, fog-free basically means that there's no plastic on here. It's just mesh. Like if you think of a wiffle ball or something like that, that's what this is like. It's just plastic with holes in it. Whereas this one has plastic, an actual clear plastic covering on it. And the advantage is that it looks really shiny and it has that deep reflection, that shine you can see on it right there versus no shine on this one. And that kind of replicates the eye. The human eyeball does that. It has a kind of a deep white shine to it that reflects little glimmers like that. So I think that's why this one looks better ultimately. But this one is just way more durable because it doesn't have an inner layer to get foggy and hold air in. This one is just totally open and airy, and air can go in and out, so it never gets like hot and stuffy. You can always breathe. You can always pretty much see. It's really got a lot of advantages to it. Yeah, thanks, Devon. Yeah, it's been a crazy 2 weeks. I've had a lot of people viewing some of my live streams and my moving lenses video, and I've been out of town, so that's why I haven't been streaming and stuff lately, but I'll pick back up with that and hopefully be making some changes that make the whole stream just a little more watchable, a little more professional. But that'll happen over time. I'm kind of in no rush. Which has always been my problem. I don't have enough of a burning urge to get this stuff done. And so sometimes it just doesn't get done. So I'm just strengthening this glue connection here. Put a bunch of little blobs on and then just wipe them off. enough glue actually gets in there to hold it down. I'm going over with my fingernail and really pressing it on. Well, I just noticed Christopher asked, where do you get the rubber webbing for the suits? Like if you're looking at this one right here, this method is puff paint, like the kind of puff paint that you get at the craft store, like this. It comes with an applicator tip and stuff. It just takes a lot of practice and knowing a few secrets to puff painting, and you can totally make your own webs. Dr. Sinistro asked, how do you know the exact size for making the mask? That is one of the biggest difficulties in all of this. Is it's really hard. I mean, if you're making a movie, it's easy because, say, Andrew Garfield is the actor in the movie. I know to make this face shell the size of Andrew Garfield's head. There's probably a 3D scan of Andrew Garfield's head, and they design it and print it and everything and get it built perfectly for his head. But when it comes to this, when it comes to kind of making it available for everyone, there are all kinds of issues. Like this shell basically barely fits on my head. I have to squeeze my head in here. And then for some people, it's really big. And so they kind of have an issue where this rim on the back is visible. So it's really tough to figure out how to make that size. And then the actual mask itself was just a lot of trial and error. I went through dozens of mask designs that were not the right size, that were either too big or too small, before I settled on the design I've got now, which is still not perfect, but it never will be. There's no such thing. Okay. Really gluing these on because it's the only connection these have. But basically this shell is just about done. I don't put the rubber seal, the rubber fog seal, into shells that have just mesh lenses because you don't need it. Do I have the rubber fog seal in this one? I don't want to take it off of. Yeah, I do, but I don't want to take it off of the. Well, whatever. I'm talking about it. So what I'm talking about for the rubber fog seal, if you've never seen or heard of it, is basically, this is an older shell, but this rubber fog seal right here, it's basically like if you think about like swimming goggles, the way swimming goggles will make a rubber seal around your eyes. It's not perfect. It wouldn't keep water out. But what it really does is these two spots right here, right next to your nose, the face shell always creates this channel of air because even though you have all these holes drilled for ventilation, it has fabric over it, so they're being covered. So your breath always wants to go to where it can get out, to where it can escape. And usually that's the eye holes, because even though the lenses are covering them, there's some air holes there. So that's a big problem with the fogging, is that air just always rushes right up into the lenses. So I designed this rubber seal here so that when air presses up, it pushes the rubber seal up and then makes a seal with your face and then forces it out the holes rather than up into the rest of the face shell. So it really does a lot to stop that fog from going up and getting in your eyes. It basically makes fog not a problem at all, I think. I haven't done like a full day wearing the suit, but Killer Dragon asks, where do I buy all this stuff? I make it. I make all my stuff from scratch, from like scrap materials. Oh man, I'm just gonna have to take this whole mask off. Oh well. Yeah, I make everything. I vacuum form the plastic shells, and I print the fabric and make all of it. For me, right now, it's 5:45, almost 6 o'clock p.m. S Green, my website is madebymclean.com. I don't have a ton of stuff up there right now, but that will change eventually. Um, yeah, so cool. Basically finished some work here in this stream. Now this one's ready to go to Eric, I believe, because that's all his order is. And then I also include rubber and padding. Not rubber, just craft foam, just adhesive-backed craft foam. And I include that in the order so people can, place that somewhere and, have a little bit of comfort if the shell doesn't perfectly fit. All right, I don't want to show you guys my too messy house. Here, let me grab it really quick. I'll be right back. All right. So I'm probably pretty close to the end here. My phone just gave me a little bit of a notification about my battery, but I haven't touched this shell since the lens broke in that one stream I did. So basically, I rushed to the finish line with those, but then that one little breakage resulted in a lot of work that I have to do to fix that and replace it. I basically have to just reinstall these lenses altogether. So it's a little bit of a bummer there, but it still works. There's still some changes that I want to make. Hope it doesn't break. Unlucky if it broke again in this other stream. It's being a little stiff. There we go. But yeah, I do eventually want to get more into that. Yeah, little bonus look at the moving lenses here. Killer Dragon, thanks. It's funny that you say, like, why don't they have you design the suits? Well, I actually met Jose Fernandez, I always get that wrong, at Monsterpalooza back in April, and I got to talk to him a little bit, and I have a little interview with him. And kind of my impression with it is that they don't, like the mainstream, like Marvel and like the studios that make these masks, they don't have a ton of respect for the replica world. I don't think they, it's like kind of my impression was he kind of thought it was kid stuff, kind of like, just like, oh look, you can replicate Spider-Man masks. That's not something that they really look at and prize. You need a portfolio full of kind of like interesting and new work and to be kind of viewed in that sense. And that was a little bit of a bummer, just kind of a sense I got that it's like, if you want to be taken seriously, you should probably do something more than replicas. That's a little bit of advice I have if you want to move into a full-on career in this kind of stuff. And that's a lot of why I've moved towards YouTube stuff. Is like I've kind of realized like I maybe have gone down the wrong path a little bit. Like it's not totally gotten me to where I want to go out here in Hollywood at least. So, but I love this YouTube stuff. I love doing the live streams and just teaching. So I love the idea of working on whatever project is fun and popular at the moment, and going from there. Where's the cat? Oh well. Yeah. So, any other questions other than how the moving lenses work? Trying to catch up on comments here. Oh, the lines. Okay, the lines. Yeah, these lines are puff paint. I just went really slowly and carefully doing puff paint on that. And yeah, so hopefully in the future, I'm going to refine the shape a little bit so it doesn't have. I mean, I still like it a lot, but it still is just not quite, as flat as it needs to be and everything. And it doesn't have quite as accurate a shape. But it's still cool. Uh-oh. Was that another snap? Uh-oh. Yep. I think it just broke. Oh well, I've needed to take it apart and fix it, so maybe that'll be a good excuse. Hey Anthony, shout out to Anthony before I go for him. Tomer, yeah, actually I do have a video of me sewing together the mask. If you look, at one of my masks or one of my videos, I actually have a video of me sewing this type of mask together. I think it's called Spider-Man sewing a mask together or something like that. I'm not sure, but it's in my channel. Yeah, wall crawler. This is basically just about the end of the stream. It's fun hanging out with everybody. I've been out here for like 2 hours now. Yeah, about hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I just broke the other lens on the moving lenses, which is great. So here's the super awesome functioning moving lenses as it stands right now. Let's see how this looks. Can't even. Yeah, it looks like the when it's broken in the movie and it's on the fritz. That one doesn't even close now. That's pretty funny. Oh well, next one will be a lot stronger and better. Shout out to you, S Green. Shout out to all you guys. Thanks for tuning in. This is a good stream. I had a lot of people come in and watch. So yeah, thanks for watching. You can go check out more of my stuff on my Instagram page. If you have Instagram, I'm just McLean.Krieger. You have the spelling, as my YouTube name right there. And then also check out my Patreon page if you want. I appreciate the support I get there from those guys. It's really helpful with the materials and everything. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. It's been a lot of fun. I'll be streaming a little more often now that I'm back in town. And yeah, good stuff. All right. See you guys.